Let's see. All right. I'm going to take something from the 12 and 12 today. For those who are familiar with 12-step programs, you probably know this book, especially if you come from AA, where I'm from. It's not the big book, but it is a book. I actually quite like this book, but it just kind of goes more in depth on the different steps. I just want to read something from step 1 here on page 22. You don't have to have one of these or anything. I'll read it. It's just a short thing. Because it highlights a real main thing that I think is missed a lot in 12-step programs, but maybe if I do more of these, I'll tie it to the big book, because it comes up all the time. But anyways, whatever. So there's one little sentence in here in step 1, page 22 of the 12 and 12. It says, when first challenged to admit complete defeat, most of us revolted. We had approached AA expecting to be taught self-confidence. Then we had been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence is no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. Our sponsors declared that we were the victims of a mental obsession so subtly powerful that no amount of human willpower could break it. So again, this is from step 1 here. The point, the part of that which sticks out every time that I read this in a meeting somewhere or something. Then we had been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence is no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. All right. It's important to know that the 12 steps is like a spiritual path, for lack of a better term, yeah? And it's as equal to anything I've come across in Hinduism or yoga or Buddhism. So when we read these things, they're the same as if you were reading like Ramana Maharshi, I feel. Like the big book of the 12-step program is like the best book probably I've ever written. At least for somebody like me who's an alcoholic, it's like the most relevant thing. It like nails every part of my life. So, then we had been told so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence is no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. Okay. This is why to me this rings a bell so hard. Because my whole life I thought self-confidence, and when you walk through the world, it's all about building self-confidence. So this was like very new, obviously, and actually it wasn't until like 6 or 7 years of sobriety that that bell actually really got rung. Why would self-confidence be a liability? First thing I feel is we have to look at the word self and what does that mean. When Jay says the word me, no, a better way to look at it's like this, I think. What is Jay but a bunch of thoughts? Or as Ramana Maharshi would say from the Indian thought system, a bundle of thoughts, yeah? Jay is a bundle of thoughts, including the thought Jay and including the thought me and I. In the yoga system, that's called the ahankara. So those thoughts, that constitutes self. And when those thoughts are thinking, they're thinking in relation to a body. So Jay is a body, essentially. This bundle of thoughts is saying that this body is what they are, yeah? So putting confidence in self would be putting confidence into the thought system. Or let's say I'm going to put confidence into Jay. Now when Jay goes to AA meetings, Jay goes, my name is Jay and I'm an alcoholic, yes? So obviously that bundle of thoughts is alcoholic, which from the 12-step system says that bundle of thoughts is super self-centered. And it's full of self-pity, that's a big one for me. Self-seeking, all of this, yes? So these thoughts, this bundle of thoughts called me, which we're going to call self, because that's what it's called in the program here. If I put confidence into that bundle of thoughts, it is going to drive me into really bad places, which it did for 28 years of my life. mostly depression, and then I would get loaded to try to get out of the depression. But self can't get out of itself, so we'll come back to that later. So the point is, self-confidence is no good whatever, because when I put confidence in myself, I'm actually putting confidence into alcoholism. And alcoholism sees in a weird way. Yeah? Because the way that self sees, or the way that those bundle of thoughts called me sees, that's a conditioned seeing. So that view of, let's say, world, and also the bundle of thoughts thinking about itself, self-centeredness would be that bundle of thoughts always thinking about itself, which is like the main problem, according to the big book. So that is conditioned, meaning that my head can only see from what it's been through. So you and I only see the past, really. Yeah? That's the way the brain sees. So when I put confidence into that mental system, I'm putting confidence into past ideas placed on current situations. And it kept putting me in the same position. Now, I've been sober for a while, but if the mental system is listened to, it will put me into those positions. Yeah? So self-confidence becomes a liability. Now, when I was drinking, I obviously didn't see that. Yeah? Everybody was saying, well, you just need to build confidence in yourself. That's right. Well, that's wrong, but they think that's right. Yeah? So in trying to build confidence in myself, I'm putting more and more faith into the conditioned ideas which are driving me to depression in the first place. Because one of the main ideas of my head is I'm worthless. Yeah? So I know from the system, the step system, and also seated meditation and all of that stuff, I know why those thoughts are there, yeah? Because of stuff that happened a long time ago. But if I'm putting faith in a piece of those, that thought system called self. So if I put a little bit of faith in some of those thoughts, like the quote-unquote good ones, there's an idea that I can put faith in only some of them and pull faith out of the other ones. But that's not the case. A little bit of faith in part of self is all faith in all of self. Because the mental system will take that faith wholly. So it might see good for a moment or two, and then when it turns back to the remember you're worthless, the same amount of faith is put in, yeah? Because it's like if I'm used to listening to that radio station of self, it's the only one I hear. Now that system in this case is alcoholic. If you're not an alcoholic, your mental system is still self-centered. It's just in addictions and alcoholism, it's like super self-centered, yeah? To the point where it drives people absolutely insane. You don't have to be an alcoholic to see that. Especially now because of cell phones, the mental system is constantly looping itself. It's almost like self, the mental system comes from here, bounces off the phone, and comes back here again, yeah? So it's just me, and then you're caught in this loop of me. Now, most things that are sold to you, including in spiritual practice, by the way, are you need to build self-confidence. But the more the more confidence I put into that mental system, the more it runs the show, and it sees the world, yeah, through the point of view that I'm worthless, pretty much, or less than. And it sees the world in a very judgmental way, and this and this and this and this. So that's why self-confidence would be considered a total liability. Huh? Now it says, as far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence is no good, whatever. But I've come to learn that also, as far as my job is concerned, self-confidence is not good, whatever. Because my head, which is super self-centered and judgmental, will love to go out and judge the job and the people at the job. Yeah? Now, if I listen to that, I'm going to react from those judgments, and then I probably won't have that job. Self-confidence is also not so good in relationships. That's why I could never have a real, actual, viable relationship if I was drinking or thinking. Or relying on the thought process. Ah, so this is why putting confidence into self, whether you're an alcoholic or not, you can see this, yeah? There's a radio station playing in your head. Now self, the mental system is selling all of those thoughts to be based on a permanent independent thing. This is when it moves a little bit more into like Buddhism in a way. But when you're thinking thoughts, all of those thoughts are said to arise to a you that exists. Now, if that's the case, then all of those thoughts have somewhere to land. That you, which is like, let's say, the ground floor of the idea of self, all those thoughts relate to that you. But when your head says me, it's taking this body to be permanent and independent, like a thing that survives independently from everything else. Now, I obviously used to live that way because you would have no reason not to unless you heard a message like the message of not to or the message of recovery. Yeah? So all the thoughts that went through my head were not only all my thoughts, meaning that I'm taking myself to be a permanent independent thing, and when my head is thinking about me, my head is talking about a permanent independent thing. If that I thought or me, if self is taken to be an individual thing separate from everything else, then those thoughts really hit super hard. To me, that's what drove the alcoholism. Yeah, everything was my fault and I'm less than everything else, meaning that I'll never become anything, so I might as well just get loaded to get out of the misery of whatever this is, yeah? All of those thoughts, self-talking, were seemingly talking about me, and I was taking that me to be a permanent independent thing. But the me thought is part of the self, you see? It's part of the idea. Paul Hederman would call it self-ing, because it's like, he would always say that it's a bunch of verbing that presents a noun called J, but that noun is not there, yeah? It's all just movement presenting a thing, a solid thing, and that's not there. So this is like, that to me is like, that's the bondage of self. That is really the bondage of self, that all of these thoughts are my thoughts and they're about me. That me thought is one of the thoughts. So if you lose faith in the thinking, you also start to remove faith from the me, and you see that there's not a me thought there. And that is like, that's the release of the bondage of self, yeah? There is no self to be bonded to. We're bonded by the identification with the thought process, essentially. That thought process, if you're in the program I'm in, is alcoholic. Yeah? That's its only move. So then the idea outside of the program and outside of self-inquiry and stuff is, and Buddhism is, at least in my understanding, is that I'm going to change that thought process. But the point of this whole thing is, because self and all of the thoughts are presenting a solid me in the middle of it. So it's like all these thoughts are flying around, and when they say me, they're presenting like I'm the core of that, yeah? That's self-centeredness. But that me is actually just one of the thoughts. It's a bunch of movement. There's an idea that I'm going to change those thoughts so that they see right. But you're not doing those thoughts. They're all conditioned from the past in the first place. So this is really the banger of the whole thing. I tried to change the thoughts in all, using the 12 steps and using whatever tool, quote unquote tool I could get it to change the mental system, but it kept presenting the same ideas, and I didn't understand why. Yeah, because the thought system is conditioned by the past, and some of those thoughts can change, but those core beliefs, like the ones that killed me and the ones that made me relapse and the ones that made me drink and use and whatever, those ones were sticking, man. The answer was, you're not self. Yeah, there's another saying in the program, self-reliance will always defeat us. I don't think the language is perfect on that. They say something a bit different, but that's the basis of it. Relying on self will always defeat you, yeah? So, if I'm relying on something called self, that self is a bundle of thoughts. If there's a reliance on that and I can stop relying on that, then there must be something, let's say something unknown, which I am, and then there's something I'm relying on, which is J, or the mental system. If I can stop relying on that, I must not be that mental system. I must not be this body. If I can stop relying on this to run my life, because it's running my life into the ground, if I can stop relying on it, I'm obviously not it, yes? The same way like the speaker, I'm not the speaker, so I can put the speaker down. If I was the speaker, I couldn't put it down because I was it, yeah? Well, it's the same with the mental system. If I can stop relying on it and put it down, I must not be that mental system. That's very important. Yeah? Because what's driving me into the ground is me. Yeah? But that me is not what I am. That is a finite me. That's a finite me. Yeah? But we are of the infinite, let's say. So the relative movement, that's called J, is alcoholic. It sees from a conditioned point of view based on the past, and it colors the world as fearful. Yeah? That's how it sees. When I lose faith in that, things go a lot different, essentially. Like the less involved I am right now in giving this talk, the better the talk will go. The more I get involved, the more off it will become, because what's getting involved is alcoholic. Yeah? It's self-centered. So even if you're not alcoholic, your head is still self-centered, because that's the only way that the mental system operates. So that thing like self-reliance will always fail us. That's really good news in a way. Because I can stop relying on the mental system which is driving me crazy. It's not even saying you're going to change it a ton. You're going to lose faith in it. That's why there's the higher power aspect. I'm going to take faith away from self-centeredness and self, the mental system. I'm going to move faith away from that, put it into a higher power. And then in step 4, I'm going to look at self. And I'm going to look at how it defeated me through my obedience to it, let's say. Yeah. And then you keep the faith out of that movement. You keep the faith into something more infinite rather than the finite J. Because the finite J, as has been proven, both outside of recovery and in recovery, if there's a lot of faith put into that mental system, it's going to be thrown off. Yeah? That mental system sees in a weird way. So that's why self-confidence, this is the real crazy stuff. You move faith, you take confidence out of that movement of self, and then something else comes through the pipe, like a different answer. And then the life goes a lot better when I'm not running it, essentially. Because as they say in the program, I'm not managerial quality. And you don't have to demonize the mental system. It's useful for a lot of stuff, like going to work or whatever, yeah? But at running my life, it's not so good. And if you're in a program that I'm in, that would be a fact for you as well. I'm not managerial quality. And I'm not going to become managerial quality if I work really hard. I'm going to lose faith or take confidence out of self, and then something else is going to manage this life. And to be honest with you, I don't care what it is. It's going to do better than I'm going to do, for sure. It's beautiful because it lifts such a weight, yeah? And then spiritual seeking would be the next addiction that the head went to. And it's the exact same as alcoholism. The mental system moved from alcohol right over to spiritual seeking. Switch substance, same pattern. Yeah? The addiction to spirituality, which maybe is worse than booze. Because it becomes extremely self-centered, yes? So the step stuff is beautiful because it goes right down the line of Zen, or Chinese Zen, I should say, Chan, and Advaita, which is a negation rather than trying to become something. Because as soon as Jay tries to become something, that's alcoholism back in control. And in my experience, all of my sobriety and life has only gone better through negation, through like a reduction of stuff, not adding on more things. Yeah, right to like the material life, let's say. Oh. So self-confidence is no good, whatever. Self is J, essentially. Yeah, even right down to the thought me or I. That is the movement of self. That's important language, the movement of self. There is no self as a separate independent thing, which is unmoving, yeah? It's all movement. J is just a bunch of movement. If I put confidence into those mental movements, they're going to mislead me, yeah? They're going to see the world as better than me as less than, and probably as a fearful movie that's playing, let's say. That's how the head will see the world because it's conditioned that way. Great. So if I put confidence into it, I'm going to live through that view, through that lens. And through that lens, I'm going to get depressed and fearful, and then I'm going to want to start to use something to get out of that. Yeah? So the whole 12-step thing to me is not about self-confidence. It's not a self-help program in any way. Actually, in most ways, self can't be helped. Yeah? It's conditioned and its view is conditioned. But if I lose faith in it, something greater than J might direct it in a different direction. But as far as self-helping itself, it's only going to twist that up, which is what happens a lot in spiritual practice, in meditation. There's the idea that I'm going to help myself, but there is no I separate from self. It's one thing. And it's seeing a conditioned way, the way that you've always seen. And to be free from that is beautiful because you're already free from self. It's just right now you're listening to it as it. Yeah? Well, most people are. So we come at it here through the program because the program hits the nail on the head in every way. And then the listening meditation is the other way. You can hear self all day. It's just that you're listening to it. That is putting confidence into it. Yeah? You're hearing the radio station of the mental system constantly. The difference is you're taking that to be your mental system rather than a conditioned movement. And taking it to be yours, you obey it. And it doesn't matter how crazy what my head said was, I would do it. Based on that it's my thought, so that thought must be right, and that's what I think. And it would say crazy, crazy stuff, yeah? And I would just go along with it, right down the line. That gets uncomfortable to the point where I just want to get out of this situation. And I tried tons of tactics to get out of the discomfort. But I would always wake up and then the head would start going again and then I would be off again. Yeah? I wasn't seeing this self-reliance, self-confidence thing. The beauty about self-reliance, if you can stop relying on self, that means that you must be something separate from that. What you are is separate from self, But self is not separate from what you are. Yeah. That's really... The listening is beautiful, man. Because you can hear your head talking all day long. It's just that you're listening to it, taking it to be yours or what you are. That's the difference, really. Yeah? If you take faith out of it, if you remove confidence from self, it will quiet down very quickly. Because those thoughts only have the meaning that you're giving them as my thoughts, or important thoughts, or true thoughts, or something like that. And we can be free from this. Yeah, there is a solution, as they say in the big book. There is a solution. Obviously, if you can stop relying on something, you're not the thing that you can stop relying on. The thought system, yeah? The idea of me all day. Self-reliance. That reliance can be moved to something greater. But to me, in my experience, the putting reliance in something greater is just the tactic to get it out of self-centeredness. Yeah? Self-centeredness, self-centeredness, self-centeredness. Oh, that's beautiful stuff. It's like only good news. Ah, yeah. Okay, if there's any questions or something, Izzy, self-confidence can turn into arrogance if you're not careful. That's right. Yeah. I like the self-confidence thing because it's so clean. Yeah, and if you see, if we designate self as the mental system and J, including the thought me, like they do in, like, let's say Advaita Vedanta or Hindu philosophy or Buddhist philosophy, it's very clean. It's like I know exactly what to lose confidence in. How much confidence? All of the confidence. Yeah. Put it into something else. Put it into something else. And then this is that release from the bondage of self. Because there is no thing called self. There is no separate individual inside of this tank. It's all just movement. The bondage is the identification with that constant mental movement based on it being mine. Yeah? That is the bondage of self. It's an identification with and mostly as. So to put it in a clearer light where you can lose confidence on it, that would open the hand, as Huang Po would say. Open both hands. And I'm no longer more bound to self. Yeah? Or I'm not bound to self at all, in a way. Now, will self keep talking? Yes. But you don't have to live under it doesn't have to drive the car. You know what I'm saying? It's like they say in the big book, we're being driven by something. Well, when we're under the ruse of self, the mental system is driving us. And if your self is like mine, which if you're in the program, it's probably the exact same. It's driving me into walls constantly. So to lose faith in that and let something else drive, call it God or call it your Buddha nature, that's whatever you want to call it, it's fine. Yeah? But to me, the key is to lose faith in self. Because it might turn into arrogance, but then it'll flip. Like the head will keep bouncing, this pop, pop, pop. Arrogant one day, useless the next day, this, that throwing around. It's no wonder we end up drinking and stuff, yeah? And a lot of times spiritual practice can make it worse because we get more induced in self-centeredness. Nice. Craig. Oh, nice. This is cool. This is cool on here. I never it's cool there's so many people on this that are in the program. From Australia. Nice. So if there's any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Maybe they'll light something else on fire here. Jerry, nice, from New York. Oh, there's a lot of New Yorkers here. We gotta be careful to get rambunctious. Yeah, any questions, feel free to ask, or if you want to put anything in the chat, you go ahead.